Okay, so we are here with industry insiders, with the best of the best, the cream of the cream of the tops, whatever you call it these days. I am Andra Chirnogeanu. I can't even pronounce my own name because I have this R thingy, like the French have that, the roll of the tongue. So I can't even pronounce my own name right. So I'm not going to judge anyone for not pronouncing it right, except maybe for Corey. But yeah, I'm Andra. I am CEO of myonly.chat. I've been in the industry for around 7 years now, and I am truly honored to be here with the best of the industry. But I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. I'm gonna start with how I see the images right now. So if Mike, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Mike Stabile. I am the Director of Public Affairs at Free Speech Coalition. I've been in the industry almost 2 decades at this point, and I'm so thrilled to be here with so many great people.
Thank you. Alex, how are you? You're looking damper.
Hello. I'm fine, thank you. Hi, everyone. Corey, are you in Hogwarts?
I'm sorry?
Are you in Hogwarts, the library for Harry Potter?
I am actually.
I knew it. Looking good. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I work with Seven Veils. We do social media marketing for the adult industry.
Thank you, Alex. Austin?
Hey, everybody. My name is Austin Fiascone. I'm the Director of Business Development for SK Entertainment. And the brands are Mr. Skin, Mr. Man, and Vitaly Uncensored. And then also for SKM. And our newest acquisition is kink.com. So for those who haven't heard the news, we're in charge of everything kink, kink men, and kink trans. Moving forward, we also have a mainstream marketing arm that oversees the monetization of a bunch of mainstream people, such as Jake Paul, Vitaly Zordevsky, Natalie Friedman, the list goes on and on. I've been doing this for 7 years and happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Austin. And the beautiful Vanessa Eve. How are you, sweetheart? How's it going?
Hey, Andra, nice to see you, like IRL, well, not IRL, but as close to it as we can get for now. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everybody and see you. My name is Vanessa Eve, and I head up the North American Talent Division for the Streamate Network. I've worked with Streamate since 2010, so going into my 13th year with the company, where I work one-on-one with adult performers, mainly based out of the US.
Thank you, Vanessa. The man of the hour, Corey Siverstein. How are you? From Hogwarts. How's that pronounced?
Well, I'd like to thank Ms. Chirnogeanu for that warm introduction. I truly appreciate it. My name is Corey Siverstein. I've been an attorney in the adult entertainment industry for about 17 years. It's a lot longer than I look, except for Alex, but absolute pleasure to be here. I'm also, I have the honor of serving as one of the board members on Pineapple Support. So this particular event is something that's truly special to me and to all of my fellow board members and the rest of all the people that are working extremely hard at Pineapple Support to provide this invaluable service. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We're lovely to have you here. Well, I'm gonna try to make this industry insiders more of an insider into the industry. So I'm gonna ask you guys a few questions, but I'd like to know, 2021 has been the second year of the pandemic. And it's been a bit, not as hard as 2020. I'm guessing because that just hit off the bat. We were just, what the hell is happening? How did you guys deal with 2021 in regards of both personal? I'm interested in knowing how you guys dealt with it personal wise, and professional. How did your company change, or did it change in a way to adapt to the new norms? Vanessa?
Yeah, I'd say that 2021 was, I guess, slightly easier than 2020. On a personal front, I have 2 kids, and mid-March, early March of 2020, their schools shut down and everyone had to stay and learn from home. So the logistics of that as a working mom was quite the challenge. And I think by the following school year, so September of 2020, we were kind of more in sync with, as far as like the scheduling, and things were slightly easier. But yeah, it was a balance. It was a balancing act for sure. And really just the whole situation just in general forced me to really reevaluate like some of my priorities and my workflow and how that plays into like my personal life and vice versa. So I think that since that time, I've been a little bit better of like establishing boundaries, just for my own personal health. And as far as StreamMate goes, the past couple of years in particular are kind of like a blur, because so much has happened, even from BLM and then all of the Visa and MasterCard and then all of the reactions from our community in between. So I've found that looking back, I didn't really always understand like why StreamMate does the things that it does and why we have these rules and business practices. But I think that with everything happening, it was made all the more clear why we do what we do. And it really is to continue to sustain like the platform itself. So I understand a lot better now.
Do you want to go in, do you want to go more into the rules that StreamMate has that you're talking about, just to make things more clear?
Yeah, like in the wake of that New York Times article and whatnot by Nick Kristof, I believe is his name, Nicholas Kristof. The rules have become a lot more stringent in terms of like there are certain things, for instance, that are no tolerance anymore. Things that maybe aren't directly related to that article, but Visa and MasterCard's standards that emerged after that article was published. So things kind of like underage role play, anything regarding minors, non-consensual sex depictions and that sort of thing. I think those things are necessary to become a little bit more stringent on, only because, like I said, it's more so for the protection of the platform and to keep things sustainable for everyone who does depend on it for their livelihoods.
Absolutely, absolutely. Corey, speaking about laws, you're the master, you're the guru here. What laws what changes have you seen in the last year in regard of laws and regulation when it comes to the industry, to content, to selling it, to all of it?
Well, I mean, look, Ms. Chirnogeanu, that's a fantastic question. And so I'm gonna
I can get your last name if you want that. That would be easier for you.
I'm gonna do my best to answer that. I mean, look, ultimately this has been just a crazy 24 months, and it continues to get crazier. I mean, every day we think that we've turned the corner and things are going to start turning a little bit more into what we used to call normal, but obviously, as long as there are more letters in the Greek alphabet, they will continue to come up with new names for variations of the virus. So, there was a monumental shift in the industry, and the monumental shift in the industry went from what was known as conventional content production, which many of you were used to, which was obviously producer, director, performers show up, performers get paid, performers leave. And, after that, the content goes and gets promoted, et cetera. And what COVID really did is it pushed the majority of the industry from in the performer department to go into business for themselves. And when I say go into business for themselves, they became clip artists and social media experts and social media influencers. And there's so many different categories of classifications you can give people. But ultimately, literally almost overnight, all of these people who needed to continue to have a source of income were like, okay, that's it. I'm in business for myself now. And everything, Andra, that they weren't worrying about in the past, which was a lot of the legal stuff, the stuff that they never really worried about because they just kind of figured, okay, well, the studios, the producers are taking care of it. Now they have to get everything, together, their record keeping, their 2257, their age verification documents. Then in the middle of this whole thing, of course, as Vanessa correctly pointed out, we had an article came out that led to some major changes in the industry, including MasterCard making substantial changes to their regulations. There's a lot of people in the industry that are, right now scratching their heads and trying to keep up with all the changes that all the different platforms are imposing. But it's not the platforms. The platforms are just doing what they have to do to be able to stay in business, because MasterCard's rules are very specific. MasterCards give no ability for banks and for platforms to get second, third chances. It doesn't exist. And so what we're seeing now, Andra, is a complete whirlwind where so many people out there who are not keeping proper records and proper record releases and compliance documents. They've got tons of content that is now virtually unusable. And now they're being forced to very much in a quick hurry become legally compliant. So, you have a combination, Andra, of this massive shift from the old conventional style of creating adult entertainment to what is the new norm. Then on top of that, all of the new regulations. And I like to be a glass half full guy, but I actually don't believe this is going to be the end of it. I believe we're going to see more banking and credit card regulations in the coming 12 to 24 months. So, now's the time that I'm basically on the top of my soapbox, screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm saying, please create content in a legally responsible manner. If you don't know what that means, there are resources out there, people like me. I'm not saying come to me, but there are others as well.
Sorry to interrupt. I saw your article about this. What would be because with so many content selling platforms that are, popping from everywhere right now, what solutions do you think of to make sure that the content is regulated and the creators can avoid anything from copyright issues like that's,
Well, the thing you have to think about right from the start is that it doesn't matter if you're creating content with your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. It doesn't matter who it is. You have to look, the second you turn on the camera and you start filming any sort of sexual conduct, you have to realize that immediately you've got to get all the documentation. It doesn't matter that it's your husband. You got to comply with 2257, which means, yes, you're going to have to make a copy of your husband's driver's license, as silly as that sounds. And yes, you are going to need to get your husband to sign a model release, and you are going to need to have waivers that you have the ability to actually submit those people's content onto various platforms. And that's one of the biggest things, Andra, that so many performers are missing right now. Because look, solo content is one thing. Solo content, it isn't that difficult to comply, but ultimately the reality is so many people are bringing in a girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever the list goes on, and they're not thinking that, man, you gotta have that model release. It doesn't matter that if you're paying the person or you're doing a content trade, it doesn't matter. That model release, that performer release, is your essential document that you are going to need to ultimately prove that you have the rights to be able to display the name and likeness and publish that other person on all the various different platforms. So it's key that you get this right from the start.
Sure. Mike, I see you nodding your head there as well.
I think that for me and for Free Speech Coalition, both 2020 and 2021 were difficult, but 2021 was actually more concerning. And like Corey, I'm definitely concerned about what's in store for 2022. I think that we are seeing an alignment of anti-porn forces, both from the religious right and the more sort of socially conservative spectrum of politics to the feminist left. And this is something that happens every 30 years or so. The last time we really saw this type of alignment was the late 80s, early 90s, where we saw a lot of investigation into adult companies. It's not really supported by a lot of things. As Vanessa pointed out, these companies are fairly strict about, getting their documentation, making sure that you're doing things there legally. But Visa and MasterCard are conservative institutions. And I don't mean that politically conservative, but brand conservative, right? They don't want anything associated with them that might seem untoward, whether that's sex or cannabis or, guns, right? They want to sort of keep it sort of low. And so when you have an anti-sex work, anti-porn journalist like Nick Kristof writing and, a supposed expose in which he's sort of using religious voices or laundering religious voices, these banks get scared. And I think we saw that both in last fall and then, last winter with Pornhub, and then certainly with OnlyFans in the summer, right? We saw a lot of people getting jittery about what types of content could be there. And at that point, it's up to the platforms to put out what they think is going to, trigger the banks. And so I think that, Corey talks about, he did talk about sort of how MasterCard sort of put out these very specific regulations. And I agree, in some ways they're very specific, in some ways they're very vague, right? They say you can't have any illegal content, or we need to have these documentations, but they don't give you the explanation as to how it's supposed to happen, or how you're supposed to store them, or where it's supposed to be, or what particular things can happen. And I know that, and I'm sure that, Austin is aware of this as well, because I've worked with kink.com. Banks are the biggest censor of adult content, right? They don't want to anger the bank that you're working with, the Merchant Bank, doesn't want to anger the credit cards, right? So they're trying to interpret what the credit cards think is, whether that's stepsister or whether that's, someone in pigtails who's actually 24 or anything like that. They try to interpret it, and they end up being overly strict. And what we see at the platform level is that platforms have to be really strict, and where this burden ultimately falls is on the performer, or the creator, because the platform, if they see something that might trigger something, and that could be, in the case of OnlyFans, the word meat, right, MEET, right, that is a sign that you are maybe potentially, could be related to in-person sex work, right, that gets blocked automatically. Things that are illegal, again, somebody in pigtails who looks young but is certainly 24, that can trigger it, and a platform says, I'm just going to get rid of this because the risk isn't worth it. To lose our bank means we lose our business. To lose credit card processing means we lose our entire business. And so as a result, platforms have to be the bad guy. When we get a new bank, historically, I worked for Kink probably for 8 years. When that comes through, there are regulations that they won't allow you for perfectly legal content that is, for BDSM in particular. Prior to 2004, you couldn't sell content that involved bondage and penetration in the same scene. That was something that kink really sort of broke the mold on. But whether that's water sports or whether that's, a dildo that looks like an animal, these are all the things where the banks come in and they say, we're going to be strict. And the more that there is a focus on the porn industry, the more strict that they get, because they don't want that blowback. So I'm not disagreeing at all in terms of should people have that documentation, should people who create that, I'm totally with that. We should be, and we have been aggressive about keeping underage content off. I do think that, in a highly politicized environment, we do end up bearing the brunt of it in a way that a Twitter or a Reddit or, a file sharing service does not.
Alex, what say you in this? Because you're the social media specialist here.
We are at the other end because what we do is that we promote the content that has been created, but is also aimed to be sold. So of course, people should take care of the whole process. But of course, since we have some clients on clip stores like OnlyFans and such, we do see this as a problem. But it's a kind of a gray zone. Some people took advantage of some legal gray zones back then, and they made a lot of money, and that's great. But as soon as the platform it's privately owned, and even if it wasn't, I think we'll have a minimum of a moral duty in the industry, because we deal with porn, and so we influence people's sexuality at a very wide scale. So as soon as we see that the platform has an infrastructure, a legal structure, and guidelines and terms and conditions and practices, well, we need to stay informed, and that's what we do. For example, with Instagram is very complicated because they say that they don't want anything appropriate. So of course, it's very hard to judge what is appropriate and not, because it's a very subjective term. And other platforms like on Twitter, for example, you're not supposed to have any fluids. I don't know how you say that in English, but liquids, secretions. So all the content that is involving cum shouldn't be allowed on Twitter, but it's still visible and allowed. But when somebody is posting it and it's still posted, that's totally fine. But this user should be aware that there is a risk, that it's not compliant with the guidelines. So in my opinion, based on the facts, I know that it's the problem is that it's very unfair because society is against sex work and porn in general. So we all know that we're tolerated, but we always have to fight for our spot and for the dignity and respect of the work. So it's exhausting, but it is what it is, and we can just keep fighting. But we also need to follow the rules, because if it's illegal, well, there is not much we can do. And I'm very sorry for all the content creators that are losing their accounts, because it's extremely stressful. We are talking about people that sometimes they're dumb. Sometimes they just don't want to read the rules. Sometimes they know the rules, but they just want to push the limits, which is another strategy. And I do respect that. They are very adventurous, and why not? But it's their money making. So it's very easy for people in the companies to judge them and to give some advice and stuff, but they are not the one exposed and dealing. Sometimes you have kids, they need to pay the food on the table, etc. And your OnlyFans is the main income. It's just that, unfortunately, it's the same with social media. We see that this new generation and all the society context we're living in, it gave a stage to a lot of clowns. And so it makes it very hard, because a lot of people are talking about things they don't know anything about. It's just a sensation or a feeling or an idea. And we are following people and listening to people that are not aware of the rules. So of course, it's very stressful and very complicated, especially when you work with, let's say, a content creation OnlyFans stuff. Sometimes you just listen to a rumor and it takes out of your time, because you need to see what is true or not. And of course, it's very stressful. So people just want. Yesterday, I had somebody calling me because, oh, should I remove all the content from poppers and stuff? And it's very stressful. So you were saying about some content creators that might look young and we need to prove everything. But of course, when you're a serious company, and I think that's my message today, especially in terms of mental health and health structure at Pineapple Support. If you want to be taken seriously with sex work, well, there is work in it. We always say sex work is work, but it means that you need to be professional. So you need to document yourself, you need to educate yourself and to play by the rules and to provide all the documents. We have clients that are into a lot of Asian gay porn star, and they look very young, but they still have their accounts because they can provide everything. I have a client that is doing a lot of sex content with a very small person, and a lot of people online on social media are asking if it's a kid. Well, excuse me, if you let your kid having so many tattoos, you can easily see that it's a man of 30 years old that is just very small. And he didn't lose his account at all because he has all the documentations. If you can prove that everything you're doing is within the legal frame, well, you shouldn't be worried and you can sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Alex. I mean, everything needs to be in point, and all the kinks and everything needs to be, well done there. Speaking about kink, Mr. Fiascone, what are the challenges that you've seen since Skin has taken over kink, and how are the two brands?
Andra, you sort of broke up there.
What's Skin's vision?
So I caught most of that.
Okay, sorry. Again.
Okay.
In the big words, what is Skin's kinky vision about the two brands working together? What are the challenges that you're facing?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the industry was sort of shocked that ultimately we were the ones that took over the brand. I think if anyone's been following us for the last 10 years, that shouldn't have come nearly as much as a shock. We've been managing a bunch of big brands sort of by proxy for quite a while now, with just by the nature of our advanced billing network and how we can bill for products that aren't even ours. So in Mr. Skin, we have think it's up to 17 different other people's sites that we are allowed to bill for as through a white label deal. And in a lot of cases, we sell their sites better than they can sell their sites organically. So for the last really 3 to 4 years since I've assumed this position, our goal has been, to diversify and start taking over other historic brands that we identify. And I think, the timing was just right for kink. We've experienced this at Skin. There's a lot of stagnation sometimes that happens with large historic brands. And I think coming in and getting a fresh look at things was the right call at the time. I think the biggest change for us is that we're finally producing content on a much higher level. With Vitali and with some of the other sites we manage on a lower level, we obviously produce content, but kink is a whole different animal. So we're really looking forward to that process and that challenge. And for us, the first thing that we really came into kink saying is we need to take production back in-house. And we're executing on that. And hopefully we'll be able to share a lot of the really exciting things we have coming up soon. But really bringing kink back to that identity of this beautiful mansion that's more of a museum than just a content warehouse, and really producing content that match like the quality of a museum versus the quality that you just might dish out there to just filler content. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an adjustment for a lot of our staff. And, I think we've got a really great team here, and I think we're really going to excel at it. And hopefully people can kind of follow along the ride that we take. And if we do this again next year, I think you'll see a whole different, not brand identity necessarily, but business identity for kink and kink men and kink trans and how we really progress with that.
I'm really excited to see that. I'm really excited to see how it changes or, gets even better than it was. Vanessa, coming back to you, and let's talk a bit about the performers. How can companies stay in touch with the performers? Because it's so important to be a community and to be in touch, and especially in these times. Some tips about how can you stay in touch with the performers? How can you just link with them and make them feel safe?
Yeah, I feel pretty fortunate just because just on my day-to-day, I'm interfacing with performers on a ground level. Just you hear the struggles, you hear the sometimes hardships that come along with this path, but then you also can hear about like how this type of work also enhances their lives and allows them to provide for themselves and their families. So how can performers keep in touch? Actually, the past couple of years, a lot of my focus has also been working with one of our partner sites. So I was working a lot with brand ambassadors and really just getting to know them and the bulk of their business and why they do what they do. So that was very insightful, but also it allowed me to like build relationships with people and actually build like something beyond, I guess, just like, okay, some sort of transactional relationship. But on like a wider scale for a company, that's tricky because StreamMate traditionally really hasn't been out there. Like it's been only within recent years that we started appearing at shows, like representing, having booths, having our entire team actually on the ground at shows prior to the pandemic anyways. And like interacting with our community. But we saw like a great value in that as well, because I think for the longest time, we're maybe among performers anyway, kind of construed as maybe like this kind of huge faceless organization. And there's a lot of nuance that is lost in that. And I think especially within recent years, performers are really gravitating toward what is the message, what is the culture? I think if anything, that will probably attract great people and great performers more than anything, more than just like making money, because I don't think that's necessarily enough anymore. So actually, after the first of the year, we're going to be launching more of a performer outreach initiative, and I'm really, really excited about that. I'm really just trying to bridge that divide between like companies and performers, because there has been this kind of unspoken gap for the longest. So it's like, how can we bridge that gap? And I think starting a dialogue, just keeping in communication, but in like a meaningful way, not necessarily trying to just like sell them on the product, but actually talking about like how this chosen path, like how is that impacting your life? You know, what does this chosen path mean to you? Because it very much is like a lifestyle. So I think it's good to like show support and expand upon that just by talking about it.
That is so true. That is so true. Alex, what are the social media trends that we should look for in 2022? Because it's getting harder and harder and harder to either keep your profile up or, you know, not get flagged, not get banned, not get shadow banned and all of that. Teach us, master.
I like harder and harder is always a good thing in our industry, but it's in 2020, what happens? A lot of people came with the pandemic on social media, so it was very stressful and annoying. It was basically like, and I think we need to see that to try to draw a little bit what will happen in 2022, because in 2022, because it's impossible to predict, you know, what will go viral, what kind of content will work. It's impossible. So because it's based on so many unstable factors, the human being is so unpredictable. So it's very hard to speak about the trends. But from what we learned, so 2020 was very stressful and annoying because of these people coming on social media, basically because they were bored or whatever, stressed, or they had issues, mental issues, and they wanted to use social media to express themselves or call attention or many valid reasons. But it was just like seeing your old uncle coming on the platform, asking, you know, we had some clients just taking 1 hour of my time in a meeting, asking me if we can do a strategy on TikTok, on TikTok. And I was like, okay, this is TikTok, it's a different thing. So it was very stressful. And we can see that 2021, there was a kind of a natural filter where only, because of course people were entertained in 2020, trying the new platform, they were here trying to make some posts and stuff. So at the end, what it was doing, it was making a lot of noise. So for companies and individuals that are using social media platforms to market their brands and to sell their services in our industry, it was a lot of noise. So it makes it very hard for them to get their message delivered to the target. And in 2021, there was a natural filter where people didn't stay. These people that were just, you know, like, I don't know, random people who wanted to test. And then, so in 2022, in my personal opinion, what I expect is a better quality in terms of content. So, you know, just to illustrate, when we are making this joke about, send me a selfie like if you were a kid, or if you were your grandma opening your phone. And so this kind of stuff now is funny because we see that people are getting more educated to smartphones and, as an extension, social media. So the quality of the content should be a little bit better, a little bit more produced, semi-amateur, so not professional, because otherwise it doesn't work on social media the same way. You know, it needs to be homemade, and the value is that it's social. But this new generation, when we watch TV shows like Generation Plus, Euphoria, and so on, this new generation is really used to social media. So of course, the expectations of even if you're selling porn, etc., of course, your target will never be the underage audience. But the fact that they're using the platform and providing a great quality in the content, it makes your content look really bad. So you need to step up the game in terms of quality. Of course, video should be more prioritized than just pictures. But we see from the data that pictures should be still used. Is very important because it's a different SEO track, to make it simple. So yeah, you still need to have some pictures. You can still post stuff without any illustration, but the high frequency visualization are about videos.
Okay, that's good. So keep the videos coming. I like that. I love videos. Mike, with so many platforms, content platforms coming, going, you know, it's going crazy. Now they're shutting down. Now they're taking adult out of it. What would your advice be to performers that want to stay an adult? Where should they look to? What should they look for? What should they go for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I'm not the first one to say this, but it's important to diversify, and that may mean in terms of your revenue, in terms of your business, to talk about, you mentioned sort of running a business earlier. It may mean working with a pay site like Kink to do a high-end production that is going to get you a larger fan base, right? That you're going to be able to do things and execute things that, quite frankly, you can't do on your own. It's really hard, specifically with BDSM and fetish, to do it at that high level. So studios have this incredible place, not just in our history, but in terms of the ecosystem now. But if you are a performer, or a creator, it is important to have, everybody has all their eggs, a lot of people have their main egg in the OnlyFans basket, but people also need to be, and especially people who have recently come into the business, they started on a platform and that's where they've been. But it's also important to, for instance, look at cams, right? Because cams drive a lot of traffic to that platform. And if that platform goes down, if OnlyFans were to go down, you need to have the ability to shift your audience to that. So I think that there are, people, especially like I said, especially people who came into this business new and just said, oh, I heard about OnlyFans, I'm going to jump onto this platform, are vulnerable when this shifts. If you haven't built up a social media following so that you can move those followers to a new platform, if you haven't worked with pay sites so that you can, access a larger audience, if you haven't looked at things like, camming in order to broaden your appeal, you're going to be more vulnerable to these things than if you've really thought these things through. They may not be the main meat of your production, but they're going to be, they're going to be essential if one of those one of those tenants goes down. What Free Speech Coalition has been doing, and we've been working with different platforms, is to educate people as much as possible about this, including talking about how you produce content in an ethical way, how you produce content in a way that complies with the laws, so that, no matter what you're doing, you're protected, even if the platform itself is, subject to, a congressional investigation or, a bad article or it going down. But I think that that's it. You really have to look at this not as, oh, this is the cash cow and this is where I'm making a lot of money. It may be where you're making a lot of money in 2020 or 2021. But anybody who's been in this business for a long time knows that those trends change. There were people who were making a lot of money on Pornhub, but when Visa and MasterCard pulled out that model program, the bottom fell out of it, right? And so you lose all of that. And I think that as hard as it is to do that work, it's almost like eating a balanced diet. Like, we all want to eat candy all the time. We want to eat the things that are in our fridge. But if we're smart, we sort of do the shopping and we make sure that we're stocked up in case something happens, in case there's another pandemic, in case there is, a ban on content in another country, that you are protected.
But is it though? Because I understand what you're saying and I completely agree with it. But I come from cams and I come from working with cam models, which, believe me, it was 7 years, 6 years I've worked with them, and it was terrible for me to teach them how to produce content other than going there. And Alex, go ahead.
No, I don't want to interrupt you because your experience is so valuable that I want to listen to what you have to say, but I'd like to add something.
Okay, there we go. So the thing is that I understand stocking up, right? It is, and it's so important to diversify, but is it, if you don't eat cheese, you don't eat cheese?
It's hard, but yeah, and then that's the issue. If only there's cheese left on the shelf, you're sort of screwed, right? I think that you want to also look at cheese substitutes, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that if I'm camming that you want to try to learn content creation, because that may be the only way out if that's something that happens. But it also can mean I am going to work on this cam site, but I'm not going to be exclusive if I don't have another source of revenue other than cams, right? You don't want to be necessarily just with one platform. You want to sort of understand these other things. And if you can't do, it may not be that you can do content creation. And I know how difficult it is to move from sector to sector. In some ways, it's like, there was a movie a while ago called, what was it? It was the silent film, where it was about sort of like people moving from talkies from silent films into talkies and not being able to make that jump. I think that what we're seeing is that as technology changes, there are people who are, I mean, there are traditional performers who are really bad at social media, right? There are traditional performers who looked great, but really couldn't make the jump to self-created content. And if that's the case, you have to find a different way to sort of bolster your thing. It's not everything is going to work for everybody. OnlyFans is not going to work for everybody. Camming is really hard for some people, but it does mean that you have to sort of figure out what else is in my basket. Am I a good director? Am I a good social media manager? Can I do things beyond this if something happens to the one platform where I'm making the majority of my income?
There is an important, Andra, there's an important lesson and something important that came out of what Mike was just saying that is essential for content creators to understand. There are a lot of content creators that don't take into account that at any time whatsoever, the platforms that they're using, such as Twitter and so forth, can say, hey, guess what? That's it, lights out, and we're done with we're done with adult. And there is a major issue in our industry where there are far too many, let's call them newbies or new content creators that jump into the industry and they immediately basically create their entire life on, say, look, I'm not going to name platforms, but let's just say they pick one of them and they basically create their entire financial livelihood off one. And then the next thing that happens is they get kicked off the platform, the platform goes non-adult. And this has been a huge problem. And so what I've been imploring people to do, especially if you're a content creator, is make sure that you're creating your own quasi database. And what I mean by that is open up an Excel sheet or a spreadsheet and, put the user's name, DM the person, say, hey, just in case we lose touch, what's your email address? Make sure you're collecting as much information as you can, because your users and the people that are ultimately paying for your content, you should be securing them no different than you would if someone handed you a brick of gold. Because ultimately, if someone steals that brick of gold, it's gone. You're not getting it back. If someone shuts out your access to your social media account and you now lose the ability to communicate with your entire customer base, which might be, I've seen people's social media accounts now that they have 100,000, 200,000 followers. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what if that goes away overnight? And this is the reality, because guess what, folks? When you're using the main social media platforms, and again, I'm not going to name them, you are subject to their rules and their regulations. They are not the government. They are publicly traded, in many cases, private companies that have the right to set their own rules and regulations. And when you click that button and you agree to their terms of service, there is a provision in every single one of those agreements that says that they can take away your license to use their platform at any time whatsoever and for any reason whatsoever. So for a lot of these, another thing that I've been seeing that's really, quite frankly, pissing me off is that I see one particular social media platform that's been very aggressive against our industry in taking accounts away. And there are now these third-party people promising to get people's accounts back and charging people to do it with no guarantees. That is the biggest load of horse shit I have seen. Okay. I've been in this business for 17 years and I've litigated against some of the largest social media companies in the world. And I can tell you right now that your chances of getting an account back once they have taken it away for some violation of their terms is less than 0.1%. Listen to that, what I just said, less than 0.1%. So before some schmuck on social media comes to you and says, oh, hey, I got this idea to get your account back, send me over via whatever payment method, $5,000, I'm going to get it back to you. It's a scam. And that is not the way you should be doing this. You should be protecting your followers, your customers, backing them up. And if God forbid you do lose one of your accounts, you should be prepared for what you do next. Not take the assumption that someone's going to be able to get your account back, because Alex at Seven Veils is someone that I've been working with a long time. And I've worked with Seven Veils for a very long time, more than a decade. And Alex knows what it's like to work with these social media companies. There's no going back to them and crying and saying, oh, that was my entire livelihood. I can't feed my wife. I can't feed my husband. I can't feed my kids. They don't give a shit. I'm sorry for saying it, but that's the reality of the situation. And Alex knows it. And that's why social media management is possibly one of the most important things that you're going to have in this era of independent content creation. So I'm done now.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much for your input. Austin works with big social media companies, but I'd like to know Alex's thoughts on this. Do you have anything to add to what Corey said, Alex?
Just a quick thing. It's just that, so we see that we had OnlyFans clearly opened some doors to our industry from people that were civilians and not really aware of how we work. They even had a lot of ideas about how our industry is, whether they are right or wrong. But so we had a lot of civilians coming up, and it was a nightmare because all of a sudden we had all these content creators that were just personal trainers who wanted to have their boobs on Instagram or whatever. And guess what? If it's online, it's online. You cannot take it back. If people are making screenshots and stuff. So of course, all of this has blurred it has created a kind of chaos because we had a lot of people that were unaware, but also completely stupid. They didn't want to read the rules. They didn't want to be aware of how we work or anything. So it created this whole mess. And of course, just like what Corey was saying, for me, the most impressive thing, and so that's why these 2 past years have been very hard, because I saw so many dumb people taking out of our time in our industry. So many people, whether business people, influencers, content creators, and you just look at them and you're like, how do you live on a daily life? I can't imagine how weird your brain is wired, or in this case, unwired maybe. And from what Corey was saying, for me, the most impressive thing is if you lost your account, there is a reason. Okay, so do not look for someone crying that you want your account back, because even if you get back your account, maybe you should think why this has triggered something. And that's my biggest issue right now with the people in our industry, even people that have been here for forever, but because of this whole chaotic mass that joined recently the industry, these newbies, they make everything so uncertain and so weird that it's very hard to get a clear information. But that's why we need to think and to come back to the base of why did I lose my account? It will save you a lot of stress, and it will take care of your mental health, because don't get driven by following all the influencers and fake gods of internet or whatever, because you need to think, if you lost your account, there is a reason. So what it was, it's no matter if you create a new account or whatever, if you reproduce the same mistakes, it's not gonna help at all.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Austin?
I feel like that was a personal shot, Alex, since I manage most of those gods of the internet. I'll just say this, and I'm going to echo what almost everyone has said here. Mike, I think your point is spot on. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, and I think the people that did are realizing how burned they are. Corey, you're spot on with that too. I think anybody who thinks they're going to get their account back is ridiculous. I'll put it in perspective for you. I was the best man at the wedding of somebody who works on Instagram Reels. Like, you want to talk about the direct access that I have, and there are people who have lost their accounts and reached out, and it's just a flat no. And just to put it, a warning to everybody, Twitter has a new CEO, and the terms of service can be updated immediately. And I think that's something that people need to watch out for and be aware of, that just because Twitter allows nudity today, there's a very good chance that they might not allow it tomorrow. So keep an eye on it. And I don't envy Alex. I think, part of my job is overseeing the social media for like Jake Paul and some pretty wild people. And I think the lines for adult are very blurred, and what larger companies can get away with is very blurred versus what an individual content creator can. And it's always better to be on the right side of the law than it is the wrong side, because you are not getting your account back. And even if you do, their automated AI is going to shut it down immediately after. So start fresh, move forward, and really, try to capture your members. There are also softwares out there. We use this for our mainstream business, but I would encourage any performer that's watching this now, there are services that will scan every one of your followers and pull their username for you on major social media platforms. And it's not that expensive, and it's a really great place to start building a list of contacts. So if in the worst event that you lost something, you'd at least have all of their user handles that you could reach back out to and say, hey, this is my new account, I lost you. Here's a free piece of content. We do this with a lot of our, Vitali girls. Here's a free piece of content that will email you. So give me your email and you'll get a totally unique piece of content, and it helps build your email list out. So yeah, you're not going to be able to work with these social media companies. They don't give a shit who you are. So try to work within the rules that they give you and use it to your advantage, but use it correctly.
True, true. Thank you so much, Austin. So let's end this in a happy note. I'd like to know what you guys, okay, we're good. We're good. We bashed social media. We bashed what happened last year. Happy to know, I would be happy to know your guys' plans for 2022. What are you planning personal wise? Company wise, I wish you guys all the best, but let's hear it personal wise. What are you guys thinking of happening for you in 2022? Corey?
Yes, I think I'm going to use 2022 to learn how to pronounce your name. That's pretty much going to be my entire goal. In all seriousness, I will share something a little bit personal, and it hasn't been mentioned, but very, very recently, a very dear industry friend of mine passed away. And for those of you who didn't know, Alan Henning, he was one of the first people. He's been around as long as I have, which is going back 17 years is actually a long time now. And Alan was one of the first people that I met in this business. And Alan is someone that I stayed in touch with on Snapchat. He shared funny videos about food. And I had talked or messaged, actually Alan had made fun of me a few weeks before he died because I hadn't been posting as much on Snapchat, which is typical for me. But actually on a personal level, and something I'm encouraging everyone to do, especially given that this is a Pineapple Support Mental Health Summit, I'm encouraging all of you, for those of you that maybe haven't talked to a friend or someone that you care about, or someone that you were just thinking about, I would encourage you during this next year to make a better effort at sending a hello and just asking someone how they're doing, and ask them what they got going on in their lives, because I am deeply regretful that my last conversation with Alan was basically joking about stupidity. And I'm very regretful of that, and it bugs me. And so I would encourage you all, for those of you that you have friends, don't think, that it can't happen at such a young age. Alan was a young man, and I'm going to miss him tremendously. And I don't want any of you to have a similar experience. So make sure that you take a few minutes and say hello, even to your coworkers. Make sure they're doing okay. Say hello and make sure that everyone's doing good, because it was a awful experience, and I'd like to take something positive from it by spend that extra couple seconds to say hello and check up on people. So there's my personal what I'm going to do better in 22.
Thank you so much, Corey. That's beautiful, and absolutely we need to reach out, because we never know what's happening in someone else's life. And you know what, even the silly jokes, that's something that stays there, and it's a beautiful thing that the last conversations was something fun and positive. So that's beautiful. But yeah, thank you. Vanessa?
What the question was, what are we going to do better in 2022? Is that right?
What are your plans? Yes. What do you plan to do better, or do something new in 2022? What are your personal plans?
Well, after Internext, I'm actually going out to the desert to go get married. So that's like my big thing that I'm really excited about. And pretty much my world has been revolving around too, on top of all the the work stuff. But yeah, I'd say just really taking more time for my family and for myself, prioritizing that a bit more, because I've tended to neglect that in the past. And yeah, just like spend really good quality time, not just being around each other.
I wish I'd known Vanessa was going to be off the market. I would have proposed faster.
Is it a Dune theme wedding? Mad Max? What was the theme of the wedding, Vanessa?
Oh, it's it's very boho, you know, so it's gonna, yeah. In the desert, you know, when in the desert, you gotta go boho.
That is beautiful. Can't wait for the pictures. Thank you so much for sharing that. Austin, what do you want to do in 2022?
Well, I'm certainly not getting married, so Vanessa's got me beat there. I think everyone sort of knows my life revolves around work, but I'll stay away from that for a minute. I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody at shows again. I think that's been this industry has become a huge part of my family and my friend unit, and not being able to see people has been a huge bummer. So I'm looking forward to the shows in January and February. Other than that, just continuing to spoil my dog and deciding to continue to live like a homeless Jesus, basically. It's basically all I have going on.
I would love a cameo from Vino if
he's not in the office with me today. Our company party is actually going on in the room next door. So he is not here right now, but next panel, I promise he'll be there.
Can you guys believe we've been holding Austin away from the company party for an hour now? We're good. We're good. Thank you, Austin. I saw that too. I was like, that's water. That's soda there. Mike, what are your plans, Mike? What do you want to do?
I think that I am trying to sort of balance my life a little bit, as everyone else has been talking about as well. I think that in addition to, it's not just about platforms and balance, it's about understanding that, like, you can't take these things on if you're not stable yourself. If you don't have a support network of your own, if you're not in contact with people, whether that's in real life or on the phone or in Snapchat or however it is, it's hard to weather these storms. And there's going to be a lot of them, whether it's payment processors, whether it's changes in the market, whether it's political stuff. You need to make sure that you're as stable as possible, because as much promise as there is here, there's a lot of challenges as well. And so I want to try to not work, 7 days a week, be a little bit better about not understanding that the sky's not falling every day.
That is true. Thank you, Mike. Alex, what are your plans, honey?
Personally, it's good because I'm going to use the word that I hate in English because of the accent, always mispronounced. I'm going to try to focus. To focus, because just like when you're in therapy or whatever, or Pineapple support giving you a structure, to take care of your mental health, that is so important. You also have to do your part. You have to do your homework. You have to do your mindset, reading, whatever. So I'm not holistic at all. I'm just saying that I'm going to focus because that it is what it is. We are in a chaotic situation, digitally and in real life. So we need to stay focused and to do our part, and nothing is going to change if you don't change. So therapy is going to help everyone who needs it, and actually everyone needs it.
It's so good.
But do your part, do your work.
Great. Dear.
Hey guys, I'm going to jump in quickly and say, what do you want to do, Andra?
Well, I'm in the most amazing part of my life so far now, and I will just keep on living it and enjoying it and traveling more and just hugging everyone. And I cannot wait to see you guys, and I'm so grateful for having you all with me, and to Pineapple Support for letting us host this awesome Industry Insiders. We're gonna let Austin get back to his company party. I'm going to still pretend that this is water. Bottle. Thank you guys, and hopefully to see you soon in XBiz or in Internext.
Thank you so much, guys. It's an absolute pleasure to have you and appreciate your time. Austin, you go straight away now. You don't have to hear me doing the end blurb. You go get yourself a drink. All right, guys, thank you so much again. And obviously, thank you so much to our sponsors, Flirt for Free, Pornhub, Chatterbait, Loyal Fans, XLoveCam, myonly.chat, and Babe Station that's helped us host today's event. But again, right now, we just say thank you. I love you all lots. Have a wonderful day. And we will see you hopefully tomorrow. Be good, people. Bye.